Okay, continuing on in 9.1. The calculations involved here are pretty tedious. This problem took us more or less, a whole page. You could write smaller than I do. Some of you write larger than I do, though. But anyway, the moral of the story, though, is that I don't want to keep doing these things by hand. And I don't want to make you do a whole bunch of them by hand, although I think I might ask you to do a couple by hand just so that you kind of get some experience actually working with the mathematics of it. But in StatCrunch, but we're going to use StatCrunch to do this from now on. So in StatCrunch, the way that you construct a confidence interval is you go to Stat, and then actually it's proportion stats. So you go to Stat, then proportion stats. And then one sample. And then you'll either choose with data or with summary, depending on if you have raw data or if you had a summary of the data. Most of the time, you're just going to be given a summary of the data. Okay? Let's look at an example. So this one says, in July of 2008, a Quinnipiac University poll asked 1,783 registered voters nationwide whether they favored or opposed the death penalty for persons convicted of murder. 1,123 were in favor. Obtain a 95% confidence interval for the proportion of registered voters nationwide who are in favor of the death penalty for persons convicted of murder. Okay. So again, just to emphasize, it's like we know exactly the proportion of people in the sample who were in favor of the death penalty. What we're asking now is what percentage of the population, right, would be in favor of the death penalty. So we're going to construct a confidence interval for this. So to do this in StatCrunch, we're going to go to Stat, Proportion Stats, one sample. And in this case, we do not have raw data. We have a summary of the data. The raw data would have looked like a list of yes and no's, right? They went out and they asked 1,783 voters if they were in favor of the death penalty. So it would have been a list of 1,783 responses. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, 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 no, 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 yes, no, yes, right? It would have been a whole list of that. We don't have that. Thankfully, somebody already counted up the number of people who said yes, right? So we're not going to say with data. We're going to say with summary. Okay. Now I'll take you to StatCrunch in a second and show you how this looks once you get there. But I've done this so many times, I already know what they're going to ask us for. So once we go to Stat, Proportion Stats, one sample with summary, they're going to ask us for the number of trials, N, which in this case would be 1783. They're going to ask us for the number of successes, right, X, which in this case would be 1123. And then they're also going to ask us for the confidence level that we want. We want a 95% confidence level. Okay? StatCrunch will do the rest of it for us. It's magic, right? So let me take you there. Whoop. Okay, so we go to Stat, Stat, Proportion Stats, one sample with summary. Okay, they're asking us for the number of successes. We said that was 1123. They asked us for the number of observations. We said that was 1783. Okay, and then we don't want to perform a hypothesis test. We'll talk about hypothesis tests later in the semester. What we do want to do is construct a confidence interval. So we're going to click on the confidence interval button. And we want a 95% confidence level, so I'm going to leave this at 0.95, right? It's already set at 95%. You don't have to change the method, just leave it standard walled. You don't have to click any of these things. Okay, we're all set and ready to go, so you hit compute. Gives you a whole bunch of information. It tells you what the sample proportion is, for example, right? So the sample proportion, 1123 out of 1783, is equal to about 63%. Okay. This is, I believe that this is the standard deviation for p hat, right? Sigma sub p hat. I could be wrong about that. These two numbers here, though, these are what we're looking for. This is our lower limit. This is our upper limit. Okay, so this is our confidence interval. Right? So we're saying the true population, the sample proportion is 62 point, it's like 63%. The true population proportion must therefore be somewhere between 60.7% and 65.2%. Okay? So that's what we would write down as our answer. So let's go and write that down. Okay? So rounding to 3 decimal places, this is about 0.607, 0.652. Right? There is our confidence interval. If you were doing this problem on a test or a quiz, this is exactly the work I would want you to show. If you don't show these first 2 lines and you just write down your answer and your answer is wrong, well, then that's 0 out of 5 points, right? So if you want 5 out of, or if you want to get partial credit, like maybe you did everything right, but you just accidentally wrote the wrong number here when you entered it into StatCrunch, and that's why you ended up with the wrong answer. If that's the case, I can still see that you did the correct work and give you 4 out of 5 points, right? But I need you to write this stuff down, write it out, so I can give you partial credit in case your answer is wrong. But this is the answer. Now, in this case, we weren't asked to interpret this interval, but I think it's worthwhile to think about the interpretation here, right? So again, the interpretation is we are 95% certain that somewhere between 60.7 and 65.2% of people would be in favor of the death penalty. Again, from StatCrunch, StatCrunch told us the sample proportion of people, right? 1123 out of 1783. The sample proportion was 63%. So in that sample, 63% of people were in favor of the death penalty. But in terms of the population at large, right, based on that sample information, we would say we're 95% sure somewhere between 60.7 and 65.2% of people would be in favor of the death penalty. Okay. So that's how that one works. Let's start a new video and then we'll talk about the next page.